Hello, fellow artistes. From time to time, when I give you art assignments, I'll ask you to include a border on your artwork. So this video is about giving you the skills and knowledge to be able to measure and draw a really nice, neat border. In order to draw a nice even border, one of the things that you have to know is how to measure with a ruler. And so, in order to know how to measure with a ruler, you have to know how to read a ruler. On this ruler right here, you can see where it starts at 0 and where the line for 1 inch is. In between are a lot of little marks, 16. There's 16 spaces. So, every space represents 1/16 of an inch. So if I go ahead and count 5 of these little marks and spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what I have is that measurement is 5/16 of an inch. Okay? But some of these fractions can be reduced, and so we say it differently. So instead, if it was 4/16, 1, 2, 3, 4, notice how that line is longer. So 4/16. And you know, I'm not a math teacher, but I know that this can be reduced. And so it actually equals what we would say is 1/4 of an inch. So every 4 little marks, that's another 1/4 of an inch. So you can see if you count 4, you got 1/4. If you count another 4, you get to the halfway. Another 4, you get 3/4, 3/4. And then finally, the full inch. Okay? So, what if I only count 2/16? So 1, 2. 2/16 is actually 1/8. If you look at this ruler really closely, you can tell 1, 2, and that line is actually a tiny bit longer than the one before. So it helps you by showing the lengths of the lines a little bit longer than that one. So that's an 1/8. So every time I count 2 of those little marks, it's an 1/8 of an inch. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. But again, we would reduce that. 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and then 8/8, which is actually 1, okay? So, what if I count 8/16? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you know that's a 4th. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8/16. Well, that's actually a half. So you'd say 1/2 of an inch with that middle mark right there. Okay, and that you can see that that's longer. So you might have a random one like 9/16. And that's 9 little marks. That's 1 past the halfway mark. That's 9/16. And 9/16 cannot be reduced to a simpler fraction, so we just simply say 9/16. Okay? So that's the basics of the ruler. They're separated into 16 little marks, each inch is. And so each one represents a 1/16 of an inch. So, when we're drawing a border, what we need to do is we need to decide what the thickness of the border is going to be. And a lot of times that is our choice. I'm going to choose to do a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to go to this middle line, and that's 8/16. So that's 8 of these little marks, and it's the longest line right in the middle between the full 1 inch and the starting mark. Okay? So that's the halfway. So what I do is I'm going to line up my paper And on each side of my paper, I have to measure it twice. Okay? So that when I make a straight line for a border, it measures a 1/2 inch along the entire length of the side. So I'm going to put my ruler so that the edge of the paper lines up with that starting mark. Some rulers, the starting mark is actually on the very end of the ruler. On this particular ruler, the starting mark is right there. And it's 8 little tiny marks, okay? So, I'm gonna, after I got this lined up right here, this mark with the edge of the paper, then I'm going to make a mark directly, exactly where the 1/2 inch mark is. I'm going to make that on the paper. Okay, I do that on one side, on one end of this side of the paper. Then I go down to the other end, and I do it again. You have to do it twice. So I line up the side of the paper with the starting mark, and then I go over to the 1/2 inch line, and I make a little mark up and down like that, because I know that my line is going to be going right there. Okay? So, 2 marks measured a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the paper on 2 different sides, or 2 different ends of each side. So, I did one here and one here. Now I take my ruler and I draw a line that goes from one mark to the other mark. And since both of those marks are 1/2 inch away from the edge of the paper, then the whole line will be exactly a 1/2 inch away from the paper. And I do it pretty much the whole distance on that side, except for a little bit, because I'm going to turn the corner and make another line this way. So there's one line. Every side of the paper, you do 2 marks, the same exact way. What you cannot do, and expect it to be accurate, is you cannot just do 1 mark measured and then draw a line. Because what you're doing is you're guessing on the other end. You might be a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the paper up here, but down here you're guessing, and it's probably not exact. So you might be tilted inwards a little bit, or out towards the edge a little bit, and that's not what we want. We want exact. So I have to measure it twice, and then I can make my line. And hopefully my 2 lines hit each other in the corner there. But if they don't, if they go past each other a little bit, you might just have to erase a little bit of the lines, or if they weren't long enough, you might just have to extend them out a little bit, and that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up this video and do the other 2 sides. But watch for me measuring 2 times each time. 1, 2, line. 1, 2, line. There. Now I have a nice, neat, measured, and straight border all the way around. Notice too that there's no extra lines. The lines are really neat looking. They're not like wobbly and wavy. They don't have thick spots and thin spots. They're consistent all the way around. Borders aren't always necessary for an artwork. In most cases, it's a personal choice, but sometimes I'm going to require it for assignments. And what it can do is it can just create a really crisp, nice edge, and it adds to the presentation of your artwork in some cases. It's almost like having it in a frame. That's kind of the idea. You can also use the borders creatively too, depending on what you're doing. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video about how to draw and measure a really nice border for your artwork. Toodaloo!